Hi, my name is Jennifer Dixon. I am with Thrive Yoga and Wellness located in the beautiful Chattanooga, Tennessee. Today I thought I would talk to you about camel pose. Camel pose is a really common back bend that you'll see in either an Ashtanga type class, a power or flow class. And there are lots of great benefits. It helps to open up across your chest. It helps to bring some space here because we always hunch over. And it helps to strengthen the back body, that posterior chain, which is really important to help save our back. And so I'm forever wanting to strengthen all the muscles in my back personally because I have a back injury. And so camel pose is one of those poses that gets a really bad rep because it's really hard. And if you don't do it right, you can hurt yourself. But it's an awesome pose. So camel pose, or Ustrasana, is typically practiced when you're on your knees about hips width distance apart. So that's, around 2 fists width distance. You can go a little wider, but I like to kind of keep it a little more narrow because the more narrow your knees are, the more it kind of locks in your sacrum. So I want to be able to move the sacrum. So this video is called Tips and Tricks, right, for your camel pose. The first tip that I want to give you guys, especially if you tend to sway back. So if you look at me when I'm hanging out, my low back has a pretty pronounced low curve. That's called a sway back. So in order to perform this posture safely, you really have to think about, if this pelvis was a bowl, you have to tilt that bowl forward so that your soup doesn't spill out the front, because right now it's like my soup is perpetually spilling out if I don't engage. That forces you to engage these lower abdominal muscles, super key, especially as we age, especially if you're a female and have had babies. Like, these muscles are mega important. So if you tilt that soup bowl forward, draw those low belly muscles in, automatically you've seen that my curve has gone away some in the low back, and so there's more space between those discs. So that's the tip number one. Tip number two, and this one you probably heard, if trying to reach your ankles is just not going to happen with your feet flat on the mat, you can ground those toes into the mat just like that. That makes the ankles a lot closer, even without a back bend. So tip number three, make sure you push your hips forward. So I already talked about rotating the hips, rotating the pelvis forward, but you also want to push the hips forward. So oftentimes when you see people come into a camel pose, they sit their bottoms back, then grab their heels, and then they try to push their hips forward. This isn't really camel pose. So in order to do this, perform this posture safely, you want to think about rotating the pelvis forward and then shifting the hips forward. So here we are. If you check me out, if I'm rotating the tailbone down, pelvis forward, shifting the hips forward, I'm already kind of in a back bend. And you're already activating these posterior chain muscles, which are what it's going to build some strength and keep you safe. Now, here we go. Ooh, I can't touch my heels. I can't touch my heels. My hips are reaching forward. So what you can do is grab plant those toes into the mat. Now, instead of trying to reach those shoulders back to get to the heels, this is going to be the craziest tip ever, is you're going to rotate the shoulders inward. So when your hands are down below your shoulders naturally kind of go inward. What happens when you do this, it kind of creates some space in the back, and suddenly your camel pose feels amazing. Whereas it might have been like really crunchy before when you rotated your shoulders out and back to try to get them. If you rotate them forward, you create more space in the upper back, and then shift those hips forward, and then suddenly those heels may not be so far away. Now, word of warning, this is a pretty intense posture, so you might not be able to touch your heels right away. So options that you can do while you're planting the feet into the mat is you can put your hands into your yoga pockets. Pretend you have your favorite pair of jeans on, right? Put your hands in the yoga pockets. That's going to help you to tilt that pelvis, that soup bowl forward as much as you need to get the curve kind of out of, not all the way out of, but into a safe place of the low back. And it'll help you to push the hips forward. As you do that, remind yourself to rotate the shoulders forward. And so here you are, pushing the hips forward, pressing the shoulders forward, and here we are in a really nice back bend. There's no pressure whatsoever in the low back. Now, What's a really fun game to play is how much can you relax your butt muscles. So you're probably going to be super tense in your glutes. You're going to be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So as you push your hips forward, really try to relax the butt, the glute muscles. That's going to allow the sacrum to move as much as it needs to. And here we are able to really push those hips forward and push the tailbone down, no glute engagement, and check it out. Heels are right there and my hips are forward. Now, this can be really, really hard to get the feeling for right when you start out. So that's why the wall is awesome. I've got my mat pressed really far close up against the wall. And so the point of that is you can press your hips into the wall, start out with your hips onto the wall, and then see if maybe you can keep them there, doorknob in the way, see if you can keep your hips pressing into the wall without really using too much of your butt muscles. Press them in, and then try to get to those heels. Now, remember, my feet are flat on the mat. I'm pressing those hips in, and then I reach the heels. If that's not happening today with those shoulders rotating forward, head relaxes back. You can plug those toes into the mat, and then push the hips in, push them in, rotating those shoulders forward, and then reach back to grab the heels and let the head go. Now, if this is still not going to happen, you can keep your toes planted into the mat or the tops of the feet planted into the mat and keep your hands on your hips, pressing those forward to lean back. Alternatively, if you have a bolster at home or blocks, or in my case, I've got a boppy pillow. I've got 2 kids, nurse them both, so I'm going to use my boppy pillow. I'm going to fold my boppy pillow in half to be about the thickness of a bolster. And then I'm going to put that on top of my heels and my calves. And then if I want to be able to let go of those hips, let me shimmy up closer to the wall. I'm just going to press my hands into the bolster or boppy pillow or sofa cushion, or you can use a block. And then this becomes an extension of your ankles. The more sturdy the cushion, the easier it is. Now, I encourage you to try to do this at least 2 or 3 times every time you practice it, because your body the first time is going to be like, oh, dear God, get me out of this. And usually by the second or third time, if you're actively trying to keep those hips pressing forward and the glutes not doing all the work, you should be able to get to the point where it feels pretty good. Now, watch. I just rolled my mat up. Why did I do that? Because these hardwood floors are just that. They're hard, and my knees hurt. So that's something else that you can think about doing when you're practicing and you're like, dear God, my knees are killing me. Roll your mat up, and that's going to give you a little bit of cushion for those soft and little sensitive kneecaps. So let's review and get into our Ustrasana or camel pose. Our hands are in our yoga pockets to help remember to tilt that soup bowl forward. Your tilt may not need to be as pronounced as mine, but mine's a really good example because I really have to shove that tailbone down in order to keep the soup from spilling out of my pelvis. Now, my hands are in those yoga pockets, pressing my hips forward. Keep them pressed in as I keep these low belly muscles engaged. Hang out here with my shoulders rotating forward and hands on your butt to remember, hey, butt, don't do work. Relax here, and let it hang down. Maybe you stay here for a couple of breaths, just trying to make everything relax, because trust me, your butt cheeks are going to clench one side the other, and you just got to have that internal dialogue that says, relax. When you're ready, you'll keep pressing those hips forward and then reach back for your heels. Press those hips forward, reaching for the heels. And keep pressing them forward. And I'm just going to walk my hands up the calves because it feels good. Walk them back to the ankle. One more breath. Now to get out of this pose, press those kneecaps into the mat. Engage the belly. Push yourself forward. So it's like a little bit of abs extra credit. You're like doing a little bit of a crunch to get out of the camel, which is always nice, right? We want to build strength in the abdominal muscles. Thank you so much for watching as I walked you through camel pose or Ustrasana. Let me know what you thought about those tips, rotating the shoulders forward, hands in the yoga pockets, using the wall, or maybe using a bolster. And I can't wait to see you the next time. If you really loved what you were watching, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out online, thriveyogaandwellness.com. You can also check out our online programming at thriveyogaandwellness.com/thrive-online. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I can't wait to see you the next time. Bye-bye.